what do we have next?
We have IP in the news. Richard's got a doozy this time. You know
So,
you could get arrested.
so just to give you an example of what's been going on in China lately and intellectual property, there are a lot of people who question whether or not intellectual property in China is even worth having. Well, recently we got a newsletter from one of our Chinese colleagues, Ping Gu, from the Ping Gu team at the Xing Lun law firm. And they said in their newsletter recently that we recently secured a criminal conviction in a trade secret case in Sichuan, China, for our client, who is a medical equipment manufacturer. The two felons acquired drawings and technical information by their contact with the company, but they went out and they manufactured the items that they found before the other company could. And so the private law firm worked with the prosecutors to find the two felons guilty of intellectual property theft. And now they're apparently serving time in the Chinese penitentiary.
Can that happen here? I don't think you actually go. Well, I don't know. Some people go to jail for stealing. I mean, it's like
absolutely.
stealing property. It's intellectual property, right?
Right. But I mean, in China, I just would worry about being criminally convicted of anything, because it used to be that they had these like death vans that would drive around and perform public executions. And so hopefully they just got jail time and are not actually being executed.
Our prisons are no picnic either. So if you want to stay out of jail, don't copy other people's intellectual property.
But you do bring up a good point. It's a crime to take intellectual property in the U.S. too, and it's not often prosecuted. But you know, counterfeiting. If they catch you counterfeiting purses or any kind of materials, you can be arrested and go to jail for it. There was a former Google employee that was working in the self-driving car division of the company. And he went out and he started his own company for self-driving trucks. And he ended up with 30 criminal indictments for intellectual property theft. So it's really not as uncommon as you may think.
So yeah, if you want to start a business, make sure that you're not copying somebody else. Normally, I think what would happen would be that you get a cease and desist, and if you were selling, you would have to give them part of your profit.
But
right?
normally it's just a civil matter. It's not a criminal matter. But there's also the Economic Espionage Act of 1996, where if you give commercial trade secrets to a foreign government in order to help them, you can go to jail for that. And the first person who got convicted of that was an employee of Boeing. He ended up going to jail for 16 years for having given secrets to the Chinese government around rocket technology and airplane technology. So it's
serious business.
Serious business.
But now we're going on to not so serious stuff. So Richard found this incredible patent, and this is being sold on Amazon. It's called the Daddle. Now, it could have been called the Maddle, but that doesn't sound as good. But it's basically, it's a harness that Dad wears. He wears it around his waist, and it's got stirrups in the back, so he can give the kid horse rides.
Right. Instead of doing the normal piggyback thing,
it's a horseback, right?
Where you wrap your arms around your son or daughter's legs, it's like stirrups, so you're like riding a horse. And
the patent drawings are kind of funny, but he got a patent in 20 years ago. He's been selling on Amazon, and it's got 4.5 stars. I wish I'd known about this 20 years ago.
I'm kind of glad you didn't, because I'm sure I'd have a sore back by now. But our son would have loved it, that's for sure.
Now, Richard's Roundtable.
Yeah, so hello, everybody. Welcome to Passage to Profit. It's so great to have you here. I was just wondering if maybe you could comment on what you just heard, or if you have a question about IP, I'd be happy to address that too. So why don't we go to Deborah first? Hi, Deborah.
Hello, good morning here anyway. I would comment on the daddle first, and that is I'm so small and short, I probably could have fit in that little saddle right now. At 5 feet, I probably could have gotten in there, but it's actually a unique idea. And it probably works and people love it. Obviously, they're ordering it on Amazon. So sounds good to me.
Yes, and then Bogdan, your comments?
I love the daddle idea 100% because it actually extends the amount of time you get to give piggyback rides to your kids, right? As they get bigger, right? It's a tougher thing, right? They get heavier and so on. So I think it's brilliant. I was really interested about the China thing because it's so, you always feel like, well, if my intellectual property is stolen in another country, whether it's China or another one, I can't do anything about it, right? But now this is kind of a nice example to see that that enforcement can happen outside of your own country. It's actually a good thing to know.
So step forward, so to speak. Absolutely.
Right.
So Lisa?
I work in luxury goods, so it's a little bit different, but intellectual property is a big, stealing people's logos, silhouettes, things like that. I used to work in the beauty industry and it's rampant through that. You'd spend a lot of money in R&D to get a product to market, and then a mass market company would come along and replicate it. So it's sort of an ongoing issue of, people. Unfortunately, by the time people are able to prosecute some of these cases, the damage has already been done because people have sold so many goods. So if you remember back to New York in kind of like the 80s, when the guys would be selling the knockoff handbags on the street, et cetera. So there's still a lot of that going on, but it's definitely gotten a lot much better. A lot better.
You can recover damages in court. So yeah, I know your brand has kind of been disrupted, but you could still get damages. So it's worth it to have the intellectual property pursue it. So Kenya.
I was intrigued by the China thing too. I'm kind of with China because I just feel like I've had so many things stolen idea-wise, and I feel if it was a little more strict here in the United States, people would think more. They would think, more about stealing from someone if they knew that the repercussions were more severe. So, I mean, I don't recommend anyone, going to jail in terms of getting like their hand chopped off or anything like that. But I would say,
why not?
Goodness.
Why not?
I will say that I like that they handle it in a way where people kind of know that there's, pretty severe repercussions if you do take things from people.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's another form of theft. Intellectual property is property, and the law recognizes it the same as they do any other item or real estate or whatever. So if somebody steals, then it is a criminal offense. It usually doesn't work out that way, but it's always an option,
Right.
and you want to make sure that your property is safe.
Right. So Steve, what are your comments or thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to touch on the daddle, but the intellectual property part definitely intrigues me. I think the world we are in right now, it's such a global economy, global world, right? And not just intellectual property, but we're talking about internet security and hacking that's going on, and all these things that are happening across all borders. And the idea of what's going to be the way to enforce and police that in all those realms, not just in intellectual property, is I think a challenge that we're all dealing with. And as we move into this new world, now we're kind of borderless today, right? With Zoom and different types of platforms, there's no borders anymore because Bitcoin, another hot topic right now. All these things are taking the borders away. So I think it's a hot topic. And, are we going to have a world police now? What are we going to do to kind of enforce challenges that we have across all the countries now? It's a challenge.
That's a really great point, and it is getting more difficult. And lots of times the technology evolves faster than the law does.
Yeah, definitely.
And so, staying one step ahead, I think you have to take practical measures, be as practical as you can with the right kinds of software protection and so forth. But you raise a great point. So
So,
it's been interesting discussion, but we have to take a break. So stay with us. We'll be right back after this.